Cassian Draven's hand closed around the black package before Lyra could pull it back. Rain hammered the rooftop of the old courier depot, and behind her 3 guard wolves blocked the only way down. She had run for 3 nights. Tonight, she had nowhere left to run. "Hand it over," he said, "and maybe I let you live long enough to explain why a courier traitor is carrying crown contraband." "It isn't crown contraband," Lyra said. "It's a message. That's all it ever was." He ripped it from her fingers. The package beat once against his palm, then again. Cassian went still, the way a man goes still when the ground shifts beneath a house he thought was solid. He knew that rhythm. He had fallen asleep to that rhythm 100 nights, back when the throne room still felt like it belonged to a person instead of a crown. "That's not possible," he said quietly. Lyra watched the color drain out of his face and understood in that instant exactly whose heartbeat he recognized. "Your Luna did not die with a secret," she said. "She died trying to deliver one." The rain kept falling. The guards did not move, waiting for an order that did not come. Cassian stood on the rooftop holding a dead woman's heartbeat in his hands, and for the first time in 3 years, the Alpha King had no idea what to do next. Lyra Penn had grown up learning that some messages were more dangerous to carry than knives. She was 17 the first time a plea buzzed to life in her chest instead of arriving where it was supposed to go. And she had not understood then that this was the beginning of a curse instead of a fever. Her curse did not resurrect the dead. It kept beating for the truths they were killed before delivering. That was the rule, and it was the only rule that mattered. It did not respond to lies, or gossip, or letters people simply forgot to send. It answered only when a message that could have saved a life, or told a truth, or warned someone in time, was deliberately stopped before it reached the one person who needed to hear it. When that happened, the sender's heartbeat did not vanish. It moved. Sometimes into the package itself, sometimes into her own chest, where it beat alongside her own. A stranger's rhythm tangled with her pulse until she could barely tell where she ended. And the unsent truth began. She had taken up her father's old roots after the official courier guild blacklisted her. Running through rain-slicked alleys and hospital service doors, and the narrow bridges between rooftops that the wealthy districts pretended did not exist, she carried what no one else would carry. Medicine for children without a registry number. Letters to exiled mates who had been told, falsely, that no one back home still loved them. Apology notes from prisoners who might die before anyone read them. She did this because the alternative was worse. She did this because of her father. Penn Alder had been a real courier once, licensed and respected, a man who believed the oath he swore meant something. A courier does not judge the message, he used to tell her. A courier makes sure the right heart receives it. One night he carried a plea from a rogue district, warning the palace that security was planning to burn an entire block and blame it on a fever outbreak. The message never arrived. Officially, the record showed a forged courier who fled after botching a delivery. Unofficially, her father died in custody a week later, and the record called it heart failure. Lyra had never believed that record. "They did not kill my father because he carried a lie," she said once, to no one, in the dark of her small room above a shuttered pharmacy. They killed him because he carried a truth they had already decided not to hear. That was the wound underneath everything she did now. And it was the wound that made her run instead of surrender when the Alpha King's guards found her on a rooftop with a dead Luna's heartbeat in her bag. Cassian had not always been a man who hunted delivery girls through the rain. Before Amara died, he had been a man who could not sleep without a heartbeat to anchor him. After council sessions that ran too long, after war reports that made his stomach turn, Amara would sit beside him and press his hand flat against her chest. "Listen," she would say. "Even a crown should remember what a living heart sounds like." Cassian had once known Amara's heartbeat better than any war drum, because it was the only sound that could make a throne room feel human. He had known when she was afraid and when she was lying to protect him from worry, because her smile never changed, but her heartbeat always did. Amara's smile had fooled councils, enemies, and cameras. Her heartbeat had never fooled Cassian. That was why the rhythm inside the black package on the rooftop had hit him like a blade instead of a rumor. 3 years earlier, his world had ended in a single report. Amara, his Luna, had been ambushed on a supposedly forbidden route near the enemy border, carrying messages the pack had no record of authorizing. Marshal Verholt had been the one to bring her body home. He had placed her broken courier seal into Cassian's hands himself. "She chose the wrong road, my king," Ver had said, his voice low and careful, the voice of a man who had rehearsed grief until it sounded like comfort. Cassian had mistaken the man who delivered his grief for the man who told him the truth. In the weeks that followed, he signed the sealed route order. A law meant, he told himself, to protect the pack from exactly the kind of unverified message that had gotten his wife killed. No unverified message shall reach the crown without security judgment. The order read, and Cassian believed with his whole grieving heart that he was closing a door that had once let death walk through. He did not understand, not then, that he had handed the key to that door to Verholt, and that Ver had used it to lock far more than danger outside. Draven City ran on couriers the way other places ran on wires and signal towers. Medical deliveries, exile notices, mating records, last wills, emergency pleas, all of it moved through a network of oath-bound runners who had, for generations, been trusted to serve the message rather than the throne. After Amara's death, that trust collapsed into control. Verholt, as head of Pack Curry Security, decided which routes existed and which were erased, which packages were verified and which were burned as suspicious. Underground couriers were hunted as criminals. Poor districts lost the ability to send anything the crown had not already approved. A message that cannot be verified can kill a king. Cassian told his council more than once, believing every word. It would be a long time before he heard the answer that should have come back to him immediately. So can a warning that never reaches him. Ver did not think of himself as a monster. He thought of himself as the only man honest enough to see communication for what it truly was. Messages are not mercy, he told his officers, again and again until it became doctrine instead of opinion. They are weapons waiting for permission. He wanted the permanent seal protocol passed into law, a measure that would let security open, inspect, and destroy any package it judged dangerous, no matter who had sent it or who it was meant for. A kingdom falls faster from one delivered lie than from 100 buried truths, he said, and he believed that with the flat, unshakable certainty of a man who had never once had to wait for a letter that never came. Beside him, offering her own version of the same certainty, stood Lady Odessa Marrow, a noble widow the council had quietly begun grooming as Cassian's next Luna. Odessa did not love Cassian, and she did not pretend to. She wanted stability, and she wanted the alliance her family would gain from it, and she had convinced herself, the way powerful people often do, that her ambition and the pack's safety were the same thing. She believed Amara's compassion had been a weakness that got her killed. "A Luna cannot answer every crying door," she said once, at a council dinner, smiling as though the words were kind. "She must learn which knocks deserve silence." When Lyra's curse became known, Odessa saw not a tragedy but a threat to the order she wanted to build. "If a delivery girl can carry a dead Luna's heart," she said, "then every servant with a bag becomes a threat to the throne." She was not simply standing beside Vare. She was building her own case, quietly, for why grief itself should never be allowed a voice in the halls of power. Cassian did not release Lyra after the rooftop. He brought her to the Crown Courier Hall instead, not as a guest, but as a prisoner with a package that refused to stop beating. Vare wanted it destroyed immediately, calling it grief manipulation, a cruel trick meant to unravel the king's judgment. Odessa agreed, insisting that Lyra had weaponized the crown's mourning for her own protection. Cassian wanted, badly, to believe them. But the package kept beating in the same rhythm Amara's heart had once kept beneath his palm on sleepless nights. And Amara's smile had fooled councils, enemies, and cameras, while her heartbeat had never fooled Cassian, not once, not even now that she was dead. "Explain it," he said to Lyra. "All of it." She did, laying out the truth of her curse without softening it. It did not read minds. It did not resurrect anyone. It simply proved that a message had been blocked, that its sender had died, that a root had been altered by someone with the power to alter it. "Why do you run instead of turning yourself in with proof like that?" Cassian asked. "Because every person who carries a truth your security dislikes ends up dead or missing," Lyra answered, and something about the flatness in her voice told him she was not exaggerating. He did not release her. But he did not let Vare destroy the package either, and that hesitation was the first crack in 3 years of certainty. Among the underground couriers Lyra ran with was a 12-year-old boy named Bram Rill, who wore his aunt's old courier tag around his neck like a medal. Bram had learned to count streetlights instead of seconds because streetlights told him which alleys still had witnesses. He believed, in the fierce, uncomplicated way children believe things, that as long as he ran beneath enough light, someone would notice if he disappeared. He was 12, but he carried packages with both hands, as if every envelope might be someone's last chance to be heard. He adored Lyra, trusted her instincts completely, believed she always knew which route was still safe to run. That trust was about to cost him more than either of them expected. An old Omega courier named Nessa Rill, Bram's great-aunt, had been the last living witness to the night Amara died, having seen her final package rerouted moments before the ambush. Nessa had entrusted Lyra with a small package containing what she had seen, evidence that could unravel Vare's entire story. But Lyra, terrified that, delivering it to the crown would let Vare trace the underground network and destroy what little safety her fellow couriers had left, chose to hide it instead. She told herself she was protecting the route. She was not protecting the people on it. Vare's hunt tightened regardless, closing in on a decoy route meant to draw suspicion away from Nessa. Bram ran that decoy without knowing what it truly was, and security caught him carrying it. Nessa's route ledger, the last physical record of what she had witnessed, was burned before anyone could stop it. Cassian discovered that Lyra had been withholding evidence and felt something in him harden all over again, certain now that she was manipulating his grief exactly as Vare claimed. Bram's older sister, Mira, found Lyra afterward, her face carved from grief and fury in equal measure. "You kept the road safe," Mira said, "but you left the child walking it alone." Lyra had no defense that made it better. "I kept her package because I thought hiding it would keep the route alive," she admitted, and hearing herself say it out loud was worse than any accusation Vare could have made. She understood, finally, the shape of her own flaw. She had spent so long protecting routes from exposure that she had forgotten routes existed, to protect the people walking them, not the other way around. That realization did not undo what had happened to Bram. It only meant she had to change, immediately and completely, or become no better than the system that had killed her father. Cassian, still carrying his own doubt about the package that would not stop beating, made a decision that shocked his own guard more than it shocked Lyra. He went down into the underground routes himself, without escort, without Vare, with only Lyra as his guide. What he found there did not match anything in his security reports. Mothers waited for medicine packages that had been stamped unverified and left to rot in storage. Prisoners' apology letters sat stacked in moldy boxes, addressed to daughters and sons who would never know they had been written. A boy named Toma, barely old enough to walk steadily, waited for medicine that a security filter had delayed for reasons no one could explain. A woman named Avel had died in custody before her final letter of apology could reach her daughter, and it still had not arrived. On the walls of certain alleys, Cassian found small chalk marks, made in a child's careful hand, beneath every working streetlight. Bram's, Lyra said quietly. He believes light means someone is still watching, that he's not completely alone out here. Cassian stood in that alley for a long time. His city could track a noble invitation across 5 districts. It could not find the mercy pleas that died outside his gate. He began, for the first time since Amara's death, to wonder how much of what he had called security had actually been silence wearing a crown. Vare did not wait for Cassian's doubt to grow. He called an emergency council session and pushed hard for the permanent seal protocol, arguing that Lyra's very existence proved unverified messages were a danger no kingdom could survive. The protocol would ban underground couriers outright, allow security to open and destroy any unverified package, detain any heartbeat-cursed witness on site, and erase courier logs older than 3 years, conveniently including every record from the night Amara died. A message that cannot be delivered cleanly should not be delivered at all, Vare said, calm and certain, as though cruelty dressed in policy stopped being cruelty. Clean routes are easy, Lyra answered, when you wash the blood off the map. Odessa stepped forward then, adding her own weight to Vare's argument, insisting that a court could not be ruled by a dead woman's heartbeat. Do not let grief testify, she said, cool and precise. Grief will always choose the dead over the throne. Cassian considered using his authority as alpha to halt the vote by force. Lyra stopped him. An order from the throne could pause the protocol for a day. It could not restore what the protocol had already destroyed, and it would only prove Vare's argument that the crown ruled by command instead of truth. What they needed instead was something no seal could dismiss as a king's grief. They needed witnesses. Lyra began building what she called the open route chain, gathering every unsent heart she carried, and every person who had suffered because a message had been blocked. Nessa held the memory of the altered route. Mira held Bram's courier tag, still faintly smelling of rain and old streetlights. Soren, a retired royal courier who remembered the original oath better than anyone alive, agreed to speak it publicly. Avel's daughter agreed to read her mother's undelivered apology aloud. Toma's mother kept the medicine slip that proved how long her son had waited. Cassian himself contributed the sealed route order, the very law that had allowed all of it to happen. A heartbeat carried by one cursed girl could be called grief manipulation. A heartbeat carried by witnesses became a truth no seal could bury. Lyra began with the hardest apology first, publicly admitting she had hidden Nessa's package, and explaining exactly why that decision had been wrong. Mira did not forgive her immediately. but she placed Bram's tag into the chain anyway, because protecting the truth mattered more than her anger, even while her anger was still real. As the chain grew, so did the picture of what had actually happened the night Amara died. Nessa's memory, once nearly erased along with her burned ledger, was carefully rebuilt through testimony and cross-checked routes. Amara had not been fleeing to an enemy border. She had discovered that Vare, with Odessa's family quietly funding the effort, had been blocking mercy pleas from border districts on purpose, manufacturing fear to justify tighter courier control and profitable protection alliances. The forbidden route Amara used that night was not a betrayal. It was the only route left that Vare did not yet control. She had been carrying proof of his manipulation directly to Cassian when Vare intercepted her, altered the ledger to make her look like a traitor, and had her killed in what the pack was told was an accident of war. Before he died, Penn Alder, Lyra's father, had hidden a heartbeat copy of that final message inside the old courier oath vault, unknowingly preserving the one piece of Amara that could not be silenced. Amara's own words waited inside it. "If this reaches you, Cassian, do not ask who carried it," she had said. "Ask who was powerful enough to stop it." Cassian read those words standing in the vault, and 3 years of grief reorganized itself into 3 years of a very specific, very deliberate lie. Vare moved quickly once he sensed the ground shifting beneath him. He secured council approval to destroy Amara's package outright, framing it as evidence contaminated by cursed manipulation, and set a countdown for its destruction before the full truth could be presented. Bram, still in custody, was scheduled for transfer to a black site the same night. Amara's heartbeat inside the package had begun to weaken, fading the way an unanswered call eventually goes silent. To unseal it fully and publicly, Lyra would need to open every unsent heart in the chain at once. And she understood exactly what that would cost her. "If it opens because you command it, they will call it grief," she told Cassian. "It has to open because the root proves itself." He asked what she wanted to do. "I choose the message before the fear," she said, and there was no hesitation left in her voice. The council hall was full when Vare placed Amara's heartbeat package into the crush seal device. Odessa standing close beside him with the calm readiness of someone who had already decided how this would end. Screens displayed the permanent seal protocol countdown alongside Bram's transfer order, as though threatening 2 lives at once might silence the room faster. Lyra walked in with the full open route chain behind her. Vare called her a delivery rat in front of the assembled council, and she did not flinch. Cassian placed the sealed route order on the table himself, the first public admission that his own law had made all of this possible. Soren spoke the original courier oath aloud, his old voice steady, to carry the heart until the right heart receives it. Mira set Bram's tag down beside it. Nessa's rebuilt testimony followed. Then Avel's daughter reading her mother's letter. Then Toma's mother holding up a medicine slip stamped with a delay that had nearly cost her son his life. Lyra opened her curse to its limit, letting every unsent heart she carried surface at once. For one breath, Lyra could not tell which heartbeat was hers and which belonged to the dead. Her own pulse blurred into a chorus of strangers' final unsent words, and for a moment she was not entirely sure she would find her way back to herself. Vare, seeing the room begin to turn, gave the order anyway. "Crush the package," he said. It was Odessa who moved first, stepping toward the lever herself while several council members hesitated. "Do not let grief testify," she said. "Grief will always choose the dead over the throne." She pulled the lever down. Cassian did not use his authority as alpha to stop her. He simply put his own body between the crush seal and the package. absorbing the mechanism's backlash rather than commanding anyone to yield. "Deliver it," Lyra said. Amara's package opened at last, and her heartbeat filled the hall, clear and undeniable, exactly as Cassian remembered it from 100 sleepless nights years ago. With it came everything Vare had tried to bury: the forged ledger, the list of blocked mercy pleas, records tying Odessa's family to the funding behind Vare's route manipulation, the true account of Penn Alder's death, and finally, Amara's own final message, spoken in her own voice, naming exactly who had been powerful enough to stop her from reaching her husband in time. Bram's location came free of the records moments later, and the guards who had been loyal to Vare out of duty rather than belief turned on him before Cassian had to say a word. Odessa's role stood exposed in front of the very council she had hoped to rule beside, her own hand having pulled the lever before the truth could be silenced, which made her guilt impossible to soften with clever words afterward. Vare was not defeated by an alpha's roar or a king's fury. He was undone by a chain of ordinary people, refusing to let their messages stay buried any longer. In the days that followed, Vare was formally stripped of his position and held to answer for Amara's death, for Penn Alder's, and for every plea he had erased in between. Odessa's family lost their claim to any future alliance with the crown. Their contracts and their ambitions laid bare for every noble house to see. Cassian did not stand before his people and call this only Vare's betrayal. He stood in the courier hall, in front of everyone who had suffered under the sealed root order, and said the words that mattered most. "I did not silence every heart," he said, "but I gave silence the seal of the crown." He revoked the sealed root order that same day. He restored Amara's name publicly, naming her not a traitor but a faithful Luna who had died trying to protect the very people his security had been taught to fear. He restored Penn Alder's courier record, clearing a dead man's name that no law had bothered to clear in 3 years. He asked forgiveness, publicly, from the districts whose pleas had died at his gate. And he did not ask Lyra to forgive them on their behalf, because that was never hers to give. What followed was not a coronation, it was work. Cassian signed the unsealed Mercy Accord before the full council, a set of protections built directly from everything the open root chain had exposed. No emergency plea could be destroyed without a witness review. Unverified messages had to be logged rather than burned. Underground couriers could testify without automatic detention. Medical packages could no longer be delayed for political convenience, and last messages from prisoners and exiles had to be delivered unless direct harm could be proven. Heartbeat Curse testimony could not convict anyone alone, but it could no longer be dismissed alone either. Courier children were protected from punishment tied to the routes they ran, and Amara's long list of blocked mercy pleas was restored publicly, one name at a time. The Accord's final line was the one people would remember longest. "No heart shall be silenced because power fears what it might still need to say." Lyra did not become Luna that day. She became something the city had never had an official name for before, though everyone soon started calling her the Keeper of Unsent Hearts. Not because Cassian claimed her, and not because she had once carried Amara's heartbeat, but because the new system needed someone who understood, in her own body, exactly what it cost when a message died before it arrived. Sometime later, Cassian found her at the old courier depot, the same rooftop, where he had once hunted her through the rain. There were no guards this time, no council, no package caught between them. The mate bond was still there, quiet and undeniable, but so was the grief, and neither of them pretended otherwise. "I am not her echo," Lyra said. "I know," Cassian answered. He did not reach for her. He did not call her Luna, and he did not tell her that fate had given him a second chance, because that was not what this was. I hunted the last person carrying her truth, he said instead. Then listen, Lyra told him. Before you ask me to carry yours, he asked her the only question that felt honest. What message do you want delivered for yourself? She did not answer right away. For the first time in years, no one was chasing her, and for once, she was allowed to take her time deciding what she actually wanted to say. A month later, the courier hall looked nothing like it once had. The wall that used to list blacklisted routes and banned addresses was gone, replaced by a simple desk marked for last messages, apologies, and medical pleas, staffed by couriers who no longer had to hide what they carried. Bram had come home. Mira had not fully forgiven Lyra, not completely, not yet, but she handed her a new route tag anyway, because some trust has to be rebuilt one delivery at a time. Bram stood beside his sister, holding a small package with both hands, the way he always had. Except this time he was not running alone, and the street lights above him were not something he had to count for safety anymore. Toma received his medicine on time. Avel's daughter finally read the apology letter her mother had died trying to send. Amara's name was carved back into the courier records as a faithful Luna, not a footnote in someone else's lie. Lyra did not wear a gown, and she did not wear a crown. She stood at the dispatch line where she had always belonged, and Cassian did not stand in front of her. He stood behind the desk with her, learning slowly how to listen to a route before sealing it shut. An old Omega arrived that evening carrying a package with no registry number at all. The kind the old system would have burned without a second thought. A young courier at the desk did not reach for a stamp of rejection. She asked a different question instead. Who is it meant to reach? The package's heartbeat was faint, but it was real. Lyra rested her hand against the bag, feeling the fragile rhythm settle beneath her palm. The city had once taught couriers to fear the messages that arrived dirty, late, or unverified. Now, under Lyra's watch, the first question was not whether a heart had permission to speak. It was who had been waiting too long to hear it. And for the first time since her father died carrying a truth, Lyra felt a heartbeat leave her chest and arrive where it belonged.